couple dances energetically. They look at each other with joy until the movie ends, leaving them both staring at the horizon. Watching that scene from her seat is Erin. She immediately applauds, gets up, and leaves the theater. As she walks, she reflects that since the film was re-released, she watched it again without much thought. After all, to her, good movies remain good, even if you've already seen them. In front of the movie posters, she wonders what she'll watch next. She questions whether she should pick something lively and whether she'll need background knowledge to understand it. After a few seconds, she concludes she'll just watch it. That's why she likes hanging around the cinema. Her favorite pastime is spending the day there, watching movies at random depending on the schedule. Outside, the rain is pouring. Erin smokes a cigarette and watches the waterfall. She tells herself it's raining a lot, which reminds her of the film she just watched. She thinks the scene where the film shifts from silent to musical was truly fantastic. She concludes that the music and tap dancing were incredible, and ending with the actor's breathless expression was a brilliant touch. She remembers it was the second time she had seen that movie, but wonders why it felt so unfamiliar. Maybe she didn't pay close enough attention the first time? She also thinks that over time, she's forgotten the scenes she liked most. Just then, she sees a couple talking about the movie. It sparks a memory, a distant scene where someone once asked her what she thought about the film. It was Ye-woon, standing in front of her with an umbrella in hand. He said he found it fun. Erin replied that everything was fun to him. He denied it, saying it really was fun. Then, curious, she asked him what scene he liked best. He answered, "The last one." The blonde, with a playful smile, accused him of having slept through the whole movie and only watching the end. Ye-woon laughed, denying the accusation. Erin admitted that she also liked the final scene, that it felt like a perfect ending to the film. But that memory is brief. Suddenly, she's back in the present and wonders why she's thinking about the past with that idiot. As she takes out another cigarette, she mutters to herself that he was right. There's no point in saying those things anymore. Because she didn't give her heart to Ye-woon, she rejected him, and it was all her fault. As she reflects, she realizes the rain won't stop. She checks her phone and wonders if it will rain all night, but looking at the screen, she concludes it's already late. She decides to watch the rainfall until it passes. Another day, at the Napgoldang, the place where ashes are stored after cremation, a woman calmly walks in. Upon arriving at her destination, she meets someone. The woman asks if she is Arun. The young woman turns around, looks at her, and greets her with a smile, recognizing her as Jisoo's mother. The lady is happy to see her. She says she looks more beautiful, almost didn't recognize her. Arun apologizes for not calling her lately. The woman sweetly replies that she must be busy and adds that she really does look like someone famous. Arun smiles and thanks. The woman looks at the glass where there's a candy stuck and asks if she's the one who leaves those candies every year. Arun laughs and says yes, something like that. Jisoo's mother warns her that it's against cemetery rules and that she always struggles to remove them. Arun says that Jisoo loved them and used to eat them loudly in literature class. The lady, with a sad smile, replies that now there's no one left to eat them. They both stay silent for a few seconds. Then Arun asks if she wants to go out for a smoke. The woman agrees, and they leave the hall to sit under a tree. After a while in silence, the woman asks her not to come anymore after this year. Arun, surprised, asks why. The lady explains that only the two of them still visit Jisoo and that she'll soon move to another region. At her age, it's hard to come. Arun offers to visit her at her home, but the woman says it's not necessary, that she now lives with her new husband. Arun asks if she's serious. The woman laughs and says it was just a joke. Then she gets up and asks her not to come anymore, to think of Jisoo once a year during this time. She reminds her that candies are not meant to be stuck or tossed, but to be eaten, chewed, or swallowed. She tells her not to obsess over Jisoo's absence and to live with the happy memories she has of her. She confesses that she tries to do the same, but every year her heart aches because of the stuck candies she finds. Before leaving, she gives Arun a piece of advice: to stop smoking. She says that with such a pretty face, she should only smoke when she's older, like her. She says goodbye, thanking her for visiting Jisoo every year. Alone again, Arin reflects that she didn't know candies would remind her so much of her absence. She confesses that her way of acting always ends up hurting someone. Meanwhile, at the cafe where Yoon works, he hands a blue lemonade to a customer. Just as he's about to return to the counter, someone says they want to order something. He turns around with a friendly smile and asks what they'd like. He freezes when he sees it's Arin. She greets him with a smile. With a slightly annoyed tone, he asks if she wants hot chocolate. Arin nods and says this time it's to go. He confirms the order and says he'll let her know when it's ready. As he walks away, he wonders if something strange is going on today. Maybe she got fired from the company? Still, he doesn't think much of it and starts preparing the order. Then Arin tells him that she recently watched that black and white movie they had seen together. She says she'd seen it before, but this time she liked it even more. She noticed details she hadn't before, like the symbolism and staging. She reminds him how much she loved that film, and still does. Yoon, hesitant, asks which film she means. Then he responds excitedly. It's the one that transitions from silent to sound cinema. Arin is surprised he remembers, and says it was re-released recently, and asks him to go see it when he has time. Watching it in the cinema is much better. He protests, saying he doesn't have time for movies, that he's too busy preparing to find a job and doing temp work. Arun smiles and says that at least today, he seems to have time to listen to her. He replies that if that's the case, he'll end up arguing with her again. She laughs and asks not to do that, saying goodbye and that she'll come back another day. Yoon, for his part, tells her not to come back. That night, Arin brushes her teeth, throws herself into bed, and gets ready to sleep. She remembers she should have had her last cigarette before brushing her teeth, but forgot. She knows she has to go down to the ground floor to smoke. Building rules. Plus, she rented a room on a high floor for the view, but the downside is all the stairs. Also, she'd have to brush her teeth again. She thinks if she doesn't smoke now, she'll surely wake up wanting one. She decides to have a quick smoke and then sleep like a log. While searching her bag, she finds a lollipop. It reminds her of her friend, and she wonders what's so special about that candy. She unwraps it and reflects on how a movie can be re-released and still be just as good. Great story, great acting, memorable music. Nothing has changed. She looks at the lollipop and thinks it's grape-flavored. In the end, she concludes that she simply realized the movie had many more good things than she remembered. And she asks herself one last question, in a whisper, as the lollipop's flavor fills her mouth. Should she stop smoking?
In the music studio, Haeun's uncle is cleaning the place. When he finishes, he tells his niece that he has completed the task and suggests going home. But the young woman is focused, listening to what she has been working on. Her uncle calls her again and asks if she doesn't plan to return. Realizing the question, she replies wanting to know if she can stay overnight at the studio, since she believes that if she advances a bit more with the mix, she will soon finish her song. Her uncle asks if she is working on something external with a deadline, but the girl denies it, explaining that it is her new composition, recorded a few days ago. She says that the bass is already ready, and she just wants to adjust the balance of the details. The music sounds calm, and after listening for a moment, her uncle questions if she plans to stay working all night. Haeun answers that no. She thinks 1 or 2 hours will be enough, and she wants to take advantage now that she feels inspired. Her uncle understands her intentions and tells her that he will set up a folding bed in room A. She thanks him. After doing so, he returns and asks if she is going to release another single. The young woman confirms. Then he suggests why not try an extended play. Something longer than a single but shorter than an album. She questions the idea, arguing that in a band like hers, without live performances, it is better to keep releasing singles. Moreover, if they recorded an extended play, the preparation time would be much longer, and the opportunities to go public would decrease. The uncle admits that it is not a bad strategy, but reminds her that next month her collaboration song will be released, so she will have a margin. Therefore, this time she could take her time and release an extended play that properly showcases her style, since releasing many singles in a row does not guarantee standing out more. The girl acknowledges that she has several demos accumulated, among them experimental songs she has always wanted to try. She admits that she will think about it, as she has not yet decided when to release something like that. Her uncle, upon hearing her, comments that since the response to Blue Kite was good, there is no need to rush. He watches her work in silence. Finally, he decides that he will also stay overnight there, as he does not want to leave her alone. He reflects that her ability to compose improves more and more. Before, he felt she was very closed in her own world, but now, it is as if that world overflows and soaks whoever listens to her. He confesses to himself that he does not know if she will have commercial success, but if she keeps growing like this, she will undoubtedly be a great musician. While playing and losing a match, he gets upset, stating that the game is definitely the one at fault, wondering how he, being a musician, cannot pass a rhythm game. The next day, at Yeowon's university, he is focused on studying. He thinks that the preliminary questions for the interview are not difficult, but in cases like this, the choice of words can greatly change the impression, so he must prepare well and have his objectives clear. It is then that the bell rings. He remembers that today the festival was starting, and that is why there were not many people in the library. He looks at his cell phone and thinks that he still has time before work, so maybe he will take a walk to see how the event is going, since it will be his last festival. Outside, he sees many students. While looking at a flyer, he reflects that even if it is a festival, every year it is almost the same, so it does not excite him much. His faculty, for example, seems to repeat the same bar as always. Then he notices an announcement. The band Idiot Dot, formed by Haeun's friends, will be playing there. If it were not for his job, he would stay to see them. Suddenly, someone calls him. Turning around, he sees that it is the basketball club guys. He greets them and asks if the festival preparations are going well, but before getting an answer, the guys grab him and take him, making Yeowon ask what they are doing. Then, without knowing how, he is already with a ball in sports clothes. One of them asks him to help for just 10 minutes, explaining that the person in charge for the day got food poisoning and they are short-staffed, so much so that they have not even been able to eat. Yeowon asks what it is about, and they explain that it is a free throw contest against the visitors. You have to shoot 5 times, and whoever scores more wins. If the visitor wins, they receive a festival coupon. The guys walk away saying that they are counting on him and that they will bring him something to eat. Yeowon, to himself, thinks that if they are hungry, they should close the booth for a moment and go eat. At that moment, some visitors approach to participate. Yeowon explains that they just have to pay the registration fee. Observing them, he thinks that they are probably a first-year couple and that this is their first university festival. He decides to give them a good memory, becoming strangely enthusiastic. After winning, he celebrates like a complete villain and reflects that this is more fun than he thought. Encouraged, he asks who is next, assuring that he will crush them one by one. And he seems to fulfill it, as he gives no chance to anyone. After each victory, he thanks them for participating. He thinks that it has been a while since he played basketball, but that he has not lost his touch. The feeling of scoring is just too good. At that moment, someone asks if they can also try. He answers yes, that they just have to pay the registration, but upon looking, he realizes that it is Haeun. Surprised, he asks what she is doing there. She explains that Ki-hoon forgot to bring the equipment, and she decided to take it to him, since he is playing there today. She also took the opportunity to see the festival at his university. Yeowon suggests walking around the campus together before his work, but she replies that she will not be able to stay long because she left the studio alone, and after delivering the equipment, she will leave. Then she suggests they compete in free throws, and whoever loses buys the other whatever snack they want. The young man accepts the bet and comments that he just happened to be a bit hungry. But before starting, Hain asks to throw from closer because she is a beginner. The young man agrees to give her that advantage.
The girl smiles and asks him to throw first, saying that from there she will check if he steps on the line. Yeowoon asks if she really wants to stay there, warning that if the ball bounces, it could hurt her. She assures that if it goes into the basket, nothing will happen. Somewhat confused, he warns her that if she gets hurt, it will not be his fault, to which she nods. Yeowoon thinks she is probably doing it to annoy and distract him, but he decides not to hold back and starts playing. Meanwhile, a certain blonde enjoys something sweet and comments that it gives her energy. Then, she wonders if Yeowoon is still at the university. After Yeowoon, it was Hain's turn. She prepared herself with determination, and after a brief moment of silence, threw the basketball. The ball traced a perfect arc in the air before falling into the hoop with total precision. She raised her arms in joy and celebrated out loud, proclaiming it had been a goal. The young man, surprised, couldn't help but admit that it caught him off guard. With a faint smile, he told her that, after all, she didn't seem to know much about sports. Then Hain replied that she had done very well since she had scored cleanly. Yeowoon, amused, reminded her that she had only managed it once, while the other 3 attempts hadn't even brushed the rim. The 4th time, he recalled with laughter, the ball barely bounced, and she herself screamed, which made him burst into laughter. Offended by the teasing, Hain threw the ball at him with slight annoyance and told him he must surely be very happy for winning. That only made Yeowoon's laughter intensify. Then, almost as a defense, she added that in school she used to get good grades in physical education, but that she was a bit rusty because it had been a long time since she last played. Her words, however, faded into the air as she averted her gaze. A shadow of melancholy appeared on her face. The young man, watching her, sensed the sadness hidden behind that expression. At that moment, a friend appeared and called him. He was carrying several bags of food. Curious, Yeowoon asked why he had bought so much. The friend replied that he had asked someone very busy for a favor and wanted at least to repay him in that way. The young man thanked him for the gesture, though he confessed it was too much. Then he looked at Hain and, handing her one of the bags, gently asked if she wanted to eat with him. She accepted with a shy smile, and upon hearing the scene, the basketball friends began to tease them, which led Yeowoon to ask, laughing, what was wrong with them. Later, in a more secluded place, they shared the food together. Hain looked at him with curiosity and asked if he had been a basketball player in college. He calmly shook his head. He hadn't been a player, but a member of the club, which he joined simply to pass the time in his free hours. Hain, with a hint of playfulness, commented that surely many girls must have been attracted to him, being a sports guy. But Yeowoon replied honestly that it wasn't like that in fact, there were only boys in the club, and besides, those groups weren't very popular, since they were considered useless when it came to finding a job. She nodded silently, understanding, before asking if he also helped prepare food at the festivals. He smiled and recounted how, in his first year, he had worked at the faculty bar. He remembered with laughter the time someone suggested selling barbecue. He had to spend 3 days and 2 nights in front of the fire, thinking he would end up reduced to ashes. Hain laughed with him, though she still commented that it must have been exhausting. Yeowoon admitted it, but also recalled the pleasant moments, the midnight roasted potatoes, the cold that forced them to huddle for warmth, and those little joys that become etched in memory. She looked at him in silence, until her lips spoke a question filled with tenderness, whether he would miss those moments when he graduated. Yeowoon lowered his gaze and, after a pause, admitted that he would. However, he added that it was inevitable, that everyone had to graduate at some point. He explained, almost with a hint of resignation, that he couldn't prolong his studies any further, since the tuition was too expensive. Hain laughed softly and said that was quite a realistic reason. Suddenly, the sound of a cell phone broke the atmosphere. It was Hain's alarm, reminding her that she had to leave for a sound check. She stood up, explained that she had to go, and asked if he would be working that day as well. The young man replied that he still had time, that he would just say goodbye to the club guys before leaving. She nodded with a faint smile and wished him to enjoy a little more before bidding him farewell. Once alone, Yeowoon let out a deep sigh. Looking at the horizon, he confessed that a knot formed in his stomach. as the thought that his university life was coming to an end pierced him with a bitter pang. He thought that once graduated, there would be no excuses or escapes. Responsibilities would inevitably catch up to him. In a low voice, almost like a secret confessed to the wind, he murmured that he didn't want to graduate. Then, a familiar voice interrupted his thoughts, saying that if that was the case, the best thing was not to do it. The young man was startled and turned abruptly, asking Aaron what she was doing there. The blonde girl smiled naturally. She explained that she had left work early, and passing by that place, memories had pushed her to come closer. Besides, there was a festival that day. Yeowon looked at her with some disbelief and commented that, after all, those who worked could have fun whenever they wanted. Arun nodded, though she added that nothing was like student days, when there were vacations, outings, and parties. He looked at her ironically and reminded her that even then she hadn't taken part in festivals or trips. That made her laugh and admit it was true. She sat near him, and with a more serious tone, asked how he was progressing with his job preparation, aware of how difficult it was to find internships nowadays. Yeowon replied that he was fine and asked her not to worry. Arun laughed softly and said she was glad, since she knew he was as capable as she was, and she was sure he would do well. Then, with her gaze lost on the horizon, she whispered that, since fate had made them meet, she wanted to tell him something serious. He, confused, frowned and asked what she meant. Arun looked him straight in the eyes and confessed that she wanted to apologize. Yeowon sighed and reminded her that he had already told her before that everything was in the past, that he no longer felt anything, and that it wasn't necessary for her to apologize. But she insisted. She knew it was late. She knew those words would only serve to ease herself, but even so, she needed to clear her feelings. Yeowon gazed at her for a few seconds. He reflected that all she wanted was to vent to feel better, and he thought it was cruel, since she had never really considered him. And yet, he also thought that he was a fool, because not even in that moment could he show himself cold or ruthless. He wondered if he should pretend to be busy and run away. But soon he answered himself that no, that he had to take the opportunity to face what was left pending and, as his superior used to say, clear things up. Perhaps that meant finally breaking that ambiguous relationship that kept them tied to the past. So he looked at her and with serenity asked her to speak, assuring her that he would listen. Arun lowered her gaze for a moment, took a breath, and finally confessed that she liked him. Silence fell like a veil between them. Their eyes met, and Yeowon, incredulous, thought it was another one of her cruel jokes. But her eyes shone with an unfamiliar seriousness, a clarity he had never seen before. It was a sincere and determined confession, imbued both with the fear of losing him and the desire to finally obtain the answer she longed for.
Some time ago at the university, Yeowon was talking with a few friends when he turned his gaze and noticed Aaron walking alone. The young man quickly called her and asked if she was going to have lunch, inviting her to join him and his classmates, since they were all going to eat together. The girl, without hesitation, refused the invitation and explained that she didn't like being surrounded by too many people. She said goodbye and walked away again. But Yeowon insisted, asking if she would be okay with eating only with him. He asked her not to eat alone. Intrigued, Aaron questioned why he was bothering her, reminding him that she had already said she would eat alone. The boy replied that he didn't want to bother her, but that he was worried, since she was always by herself. Then he reflected to himself, reminding her that they were in the same group for a university project and had to get along, even if they didn't like each other, because the work had to turn out well. Besides, they would have to meet frequently. Arun looked at him, and after a few seconds accepted. If he wanted it so much, from that moment on they would eat together, just the two of them. She asked him what he thought about it. Yeowon observed her in silence for a moment and finally nodded. He stepped closer and said that then they would have lunch, just the two of them. Aaron, upon hearing this, brightened and asked if they could go right away. Yet, inside, she couldn't stop wondering what was going on with that boy. It seemed strange, since normally when she said absurd things, people stayed away. But he hadn't done so, and she questioned why he remained there. Then she suggested going to a nearby Japanese ramen restaurant. Yeonwon agreed with interest, confessing that he had never tried Japanese ramen and that he was curious about it. Thus, they walked together to the place. The young man, however, thought that all of this was silly and that the idea of continuing to eat only with him wouldn't last. He was convinced that after a couple of meals, she would get tired and end up making other friends to go out with instead. He concluded, therefore, that it was only something temporary. Now in the present, while both remained silent, Yeonwon suddenly asked her if she liked him, and why. The girl replied that she wanted to take back the answer she had given him before, and that if he wanted to know when she was being sincere, at that moment she was more honest than ever. Even so, Yeonwon questioned what the point was of saying that now, after so many years. Arun replied that she didn't expect anything to happen, but simply wanted to correct what had been wrong. She explained it was like an error notebook in her heart, and that she needed to apologize for having hurt him so much. The young man, seriously, told her that if she was truly sincere now, he wanted to know why she had rejected him back then. He wanted to understand why she lied to him. The girl confessed it was because of fear. Intrigued, Yeonwon asked if she was afraid of him. But Arun laughed and denied it. It wasn't that. What she feared was getting close to him. She told him that long ago she had someone she trusted deeply, a friend who had been with her since childhood and whom she cherished very much. She was close, and at the same time showed a maturity that gave her emotional security. However, one day she died in a traffic accident. To make matters worse, it was only 2 days before a school trip they had planned together. They were going to go shopping for what they needed, but suddenly, her friend disappeared forever. Arun said that it was heartbreaking, though at first she managed to endure it. When she missed her, she cried and released her emotions. But after that loss, she had no one to rely on. Everything became unbearable. She confessed she barely remembered that time because her mind was so shattered that she lost control. She lived in absolute chaos, skipping classes for days and locking herself in her room. In the end, her family forced her out of that state. She knew they did it for her own good, but at that time it was impossible for her to accept the situation. She added that there was a saying, "Fish that live in the depths of the sea get burned by the heat of the human body." That's how she felt her family's affection, like a flame that tormented her. That's why she ran away. And she confessed that the more time she spent with Yeonwon and the more memories they shared, the more painful her memories of loss became. She always ended up remembering what she had lost. She admitted that what she did was wrong, but at that time she was a coward. Yeonwon lowered his gaze and asked her why she was saying all this now. He added that if she was going to run away, then she should just keep running. Hearing this, Arun remembered the words of her friend's mother, who once told her that sweets aren't something you just stick and throw away. You have to chew them or swallow them. She shouldn't obsess over her friend's departure, but learn to live by appreciating the happy memories. Then, Arun commented that she liked the shape of Yeonwon's mouth when he smiled, and that was why she wanted to try to get used to his warmth. He looked at her in disbelief, and the girl, with a smile, apologized. She admitted that she had said she came to apologize, but the more she talked, the more greedy she became. Finally, she began to walk away, asking him to seriously think about her confession, clarifying that he didn't have to answer right away. As she left Yeonwon alone, burdened with emotions and not knowing what to say. His thoughts, however, were interrupted by the student council, which announced a forecast of rain and urged everyone to get ready so they wouldn't get wet. Meanwhile, Hae-in heard a loud noise, and his companion asked if what had sounded was thunder, surprised that no storm had been forecast for that day. He complained, since he didn't want to play in the rain and had just fixed his guitar. But Hae-in, looking at the sky, thought it was probably going to be a quick shower. In any case, he decided to leave right then, wishing his friend a good performance. The young man thanked him for the help and for carrying his guitar pedal board. As he headed to his studio, he thought that it really looked like it was going to rain a lot, so the best thing was to hurry back to work. Besides, he wished that Yeonwon wouldn't get wet either. However, the latter was walking slowly, lost in his thoughts, trying to organize his feelings.
In another place, an elegant Yowoon was sitting and having a coffee until someone interrupted him by greeting him. The young man responded the same way. The interviewer explained that he was working on an article where he asked people in their 20s what they thought nowadays and wanted to know if it would be possible to do a short interview with him. Yowoon replied yes, that it was no problem, since he was just taking a break. The interviewer thanked him and asked about his job, if he was already an adult working. Yowoon answered that not yet, that he was a student and had just come from an internship interview. The interviewer understood and wished him the best results. Next, he wanted to know how he was feeling at that moment. Yowoon reflected a bit and answered that he had made a small mistake during the interview, and that was why he felt somewhat disappointed. The interviewer clarified that he didn't mean that, but something else. He asked what he was going to do about what Han Arion had said. Yowoon was surprised and questioned how he knew that information. The interviewer insisted he answer, wanting to know what he was going to do and if he would accept her confession. The young man answered that he would clearly reject her because he had decided that a long time ago. The interviewer questioned him about whether he really didn't miss her, reminding him that they had shared many good memories, that they had studied the same major and could communicate better than with other people. He added that she was a good person and not easy to forget, and that's why, even after all those years, he still carried her in his heart. He concluded by saying that, in reality, Yowoon had never fully closed the breakup, as he excused himself by saying that he had been abandoned. It was then revealed that the interviewer was actually Yowoon himself, telling himself that second chances did exist. Suddenly, Yowoon woke up and realized that it had all been a dream. He thought that it had really felt like a real interview. He wondered where he was and if he still had a long way to go. However, he noticed that he had already arrived. He ran out, asking them to wait before the subway doors closed. Once outside, he reflected that he had almost missed his stop. Meanwhile, at the cafe, Yowoon arrived greeting his coworkers, and the manager welcomed him warmly. His coworker wanted to know what was going on with him and why he was dressed in a suit, asking if he had had his graduation photo session that day. The young man replied no, that he had just had an internship interview and had borrowed the suit. Shin Young commented that it looked great on him and asked if he had taken a picture to send to his girlfriend. Hearing that, Yowoon became nervous and said he wasn't sure. She was left confused. Then he mentioned that he was going to change clothes and would be right back. His coworker accepted but remained thoughtful, commenting to the manager that maybe Yowoon had argued with his girlfriend, or had been dumped, or maybe he had failed the interview. The manager, surprised, wanted to know why she was saying that all of a sudden. Meanwhile, Yowoon was changing his clothes. He reflected that he didn't understand why he was so confused, if he had already made a decision, remembering Hain, only to then think of Arayun. He felt that when someone who used to be constant suddenly changed, it made him feel sad. He wondered if that was why he was so upset, and if he still felt compassion for someone he had wanted to hate so much. He lightly slapped his cheeks to stop thinking about it. He thought he needed to end those thoughts, since he had to focus on working and then studying for final exams. While working, he delivered order number 82 and wished the customer to enjoy it. Then, his manager told him there was a takeout order, an iced Americano and a strawberry shake. The young man agreed to deliver it. However, Oh Yoo-ju noticed a detail. There was an order on the table. She picked it up and asked if order number 81 had already been processed. Yowoon replied that he had received it a while ago, but surely had forgotten and processed the next one first. The manager questioned him, asking what he was doing and if he had made a mistake. The young man apologized and said he would fix it right away. Oh Yoo-ju asked him not to rush, that she would handle it, and told him to deliver the order calmly so as not to have an accident. The young man agreed. Just then, Arayun arrived, greeting everyone. Then she looked at Yowoon, who was focused on preparing a drink. Oh Yoo-ju welcomed her with a smile and wanted to know if she wanted a hot chocolate. Arayun answered yes and asked how she had guessed. The barista said she was a loyal customer and asked if she would drink it there. Arayun replied no, that she would take it to go. Oh Yoo-ju agreed and told her she would let her know when it was ready. She immediately asked Yowoon to also prepare the hot chocolate. He nodded. But the woman noticed something strange and asked if he was pouring coffee into a fruit shake. The young man realized the mistake, panicked, apologized, and said he would quickly prepare it again. The manager asked him to stop, that she would handle it and ordered him to rest for 5 minutes. He agreed, thinking that it had been a long time since he was last scolded. He glanced at Arian, and she also looked at him, but their eyes didn't meet. Later, Yewon was lightly bumping his forehead against the cabinet, trying to clear his mind and focus. At the end of the day, while cleaning, Oyuju asked if he had already done the cash closing. The young man confirmed yes, that only cleaning the floor was left. She said that was fine, but immediately called him again. She wanted to know if it was difficult for him to prepare to find a job these days. The young man replied that it wasn't about that it was just the beginning, and that even if it was hard, he had to encourage himself. The manager commented that she didn't usually watch the news, but had heard that many young people were having a hard time lately, that it affected them one way or another, and that the world had many hopes in them. She added that he would be fine, because he did everything sincerely. The young man, somewhat nervous, smiled and thanked her. Yuju observed him for a few seconds and told him that, if at some point he was having a hard time, he should let her know. She added that she could invite him for 1 or 2 drinks, wanting to make sure he understood. The young man thought for a moment and replied that they could go have drinks that same day, confessing that he really wanted to drink something. His manager got excited and agreed, saying they would go straight to a bar where they served whiskey. Yewon commented that a beer was fine, but the woman asked him not to be ridiculous, that it was already late, and that whiskey was the best option. Meanwhile, at the subway station, the last train was arriving. Hyen was sitting, waiting, and looking somewhat pensive.